Shima, Shima, love, 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 love. In this moment, oh infinite divine beloved, we open to allowing more love. Fill us to overflowing with divine love, which spills forth from the soul through the door of our heart, that sacred center, green with beauty and softness, cool like a summer breeze through trees of green. Clouds of white, red roses too. May they bloom for me and you. May we realize the blooming of the 1,000-petal lotus of the brain. May this love spark divine light, which leads us on the steady path of divine realization of self. It is through loving the self that we experience a greater awakening of those soul qualities. We need nothing from anyone or anything from the outside. We can attract at will because we're in tune with the omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent will of the almighty infinite divine. I say yes. I say nothing at all. I allow. Om Shanti. Peace. And so be it. Thank you. Good night. That's the feeling. Can you feel that? So join us. Our next soul session out there is what? The third. It's going to be the 4th Wednesday of July. Can somebody give me a quick date check? Date check. I'll just keep on talking until somebody tells me what that date is. Can somebody tell me when it's not the 3rd Wednesday, that's the 19th. It's the following Wednesday in July. Someone help me out.
I'm gonna say 26.
Is it?
1, 2, 3, 7 days. 26.
Okay, so Wednesday, July 26th, from 7 to 8 p.m. we'll be out at the Dempsey Event Center, 123 Hyatt's Road, and we'll be doing things like you just heard. And that deep meditation. So in between those chants, you know how you just felt really still? We stay in that stillness for a little while. And it's open to everyone. Bring friends, family, and we allow just love offering contributions for that. And your presence is enough. So be there with us Wednesday, July 26th. This coming Saturday, it's Helen Yee's Qigong workshop out there at the Dempsey from 10 to 12. Please register in advance online at soulcallglobal.org. And then this coming Wednesday, the 28th, for the full moon, Dr. Sandro Solano. There are still some spots available. It's actually filling up really fast now, but you can also go to soulcallglobal.org and register for these. These are showing crystal bowls, which she actually does Tibetan singing bowls. And it's going to be a healing opportunity. She's toured all over the world doing this, and we've got her right here in Columbus, Ohio, sponsored by SoulCall. So be there and allow yourselves to be filled to overflowing. Woo-hoo. Yeah. So this morning, it brings me around to being filled to overflowing. I want you to think about it while we were meditating. Were you able to call to your heart's mind someone who had a major positive impact in your life at the time you needed it the most? I mean, beside me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it could be you.
No, that's something this person would have never said. This is kind of what I loved about her. She, over the years, I'm talking about a woman named Jean Kondo, and she taught and started every female sports program at Montour High School from the time she was there. I think she started in 1964. And it was before Title IX, and women were just starting to be allowed to play sports, to find that inner strength and have that opportunity to understand team building in a way as it related to body, mind, spirit connection. And she was always very much into the next best thing. Some of my fond memories would be sitting, she lived pretty close to where I lived. And when I graduated from high school, I was invited to come back and coach with Jean and the assistant coach. I was one of the assistants, and I took over the junior varsity team. and specialized in the pitcher catcher. We played fast pitch softball. I was a catcher. And she saw something in me when I thought it was in there, but I wasn't getting a whole lot of reinforcement that I had this thing. So think about times where people were trying to tell you, you're too loud, you're too this, you're too that, or girls don't do that, or whatever it was that you felt you had. She saw it and helped me bring it out and hold on to it. So one story I want to share in terms of soul qualities. So I'm going to read this list of soul qualities and think of people who are influencers in your life and how you can become influencers in other people's life. That's not the goal, is to become an influencer in other people's lives, unless you're on social media. The goal is to become the best you are. Divine realization. That's the only reason we incarnate. That's the goal, is self-realization. That's it. To live out fully with courage your soul's calling, whatever that is. And as a result of doing that thing, others are influenced by the example and by the beauty you create just by showing up or just doing the things you do. You're not doing it for any recognition. If that's the motivation, it somehow will fall short. You might have discovered that in your life. And if not, then maybe you don't need this talk today. But some of the soul qualities: fearlessness, purity, almsgiving. Doesn't mean only with your money, but how do you help those who don't have enough to sustain so that they can also remember? So you help those. Steadfastness. In the face of every obstacle. I think of Jean and her example of steadfastness at a time when women's sports were really non-existent. She started, I believe, with the basketball program, because girls were allowed to play basketball. And the way we were allowed to play basketball, not me, this was before my time, well, you would stand much like the guys played basketball, but you weren't allowed to really move because girls couldn't do that without getting hurt. You just stand and pass the ball around, and two dribbles. Yeah, boom, boom, because you might hurt your dainty little wrist. And God forbid you get, it was kind of, oh my God, how did we stand that? I don't know how they did it. But that's a whole lesson for another time. Steadfastness, religious rights, but that is more like self-discipline. Let's take up religion, but just progressing on the path of spirituality and awakening. Let's use that. The right to study scripture, let's say divine inspiration, access to that. Self-discipline. How much does everybody love self-discipline? But when you do it, when you execute self-discipline, isn't it amazing? Without the self-discipline of fasting, we would never have the full realization of what is possible by living purely on life force. And our cells need it. Our cells need to not be breaking down solids all the time so that they can get, just like being in the sun. It's just like they need the sun from the inside, the sun of the soul, to just let them feed on what they want. They give the body, they help you break down what the body wants. But if you allow the cells of the soul to have what it wants, it gives your cells pure light, pure love, pure energy. Isn't there a song? Pure energy. Song, dance song. Non-injury. If your soul's calling allows you to keep going and to inspire without injuring others, you don't have to. Sometimes people won't get their own way, but that doesn't mean you're trying to harm them. It's just some things need to change. Sorry if it offends you if we take more than 2 dribbles, but we're going to do it anyway. Renunciation. The definition I like to use for renunciation is giving up the lesser for the greater. Giving up the lesser for the greater. Sometimes the body, when the will is so attached to the body, the body then becomes the master. When the willpower is governed by the body, like, I want to eat this, I want to drink this, I want, that means your will is limited by the lesser. So self-discipline and renunciation, like, I'm not going to eat these foods, I'm going to fast for a couple of days so that I can remember how powerful I am, and I will get a greater reward than just this ice cream cone right now. Although I can't think of a better reward than an ice cream cone sometimes, so I'll think of a better example than these peas. I won't eat these peas. I'm going to just fast for a minute. Speaking of peas, the next word is peace. Peace, these soul qualities, compassion. I can't tell you how many times, as tough, I was just reading through the accolades and people contributing to the memories of Jean Kondo on Facebook from everyone who had her over the decades that she coached and taught there. Astounding. Well, one word that came up more than any other was she was tough. And when you got to appreciate what she was doing with that, sometimes you'll hear me talk about analogies of sandpaper. When you cut a piece of wood, the grain is rough, so you grab a rough piece of sandpaper, and it's rough to rough until it starts to become refined. Then you trade that sandpaper out for something a little less, until it's smooth. She was rough until she wasn't. And it wasn't like she was trying to make you become something that you weren't. She was trying to help you, the individual, shave yourself down, like smooth your own edges. This is how you do it. It meets with resistance initially because I'm used to playing ball this way. I'm used to throwing it here when it comes. Well, today we're going to do this. So how flexible can you become, and how can you learn new things? One of the things I appreciated, she was a master coach, teacher. She knew every sport she started inside and out. Yet in the off seasons, she would go to clinics taught by other coaches, maybe at the college level. She coached at the college level. She taught men's sports, coached men's sports at the college level. And they had winning teams. And then she was let go because it was insulting to the guys that weren't able to do that. She just knew how to get the best out of you, out of each individual. She saw you for who you were, and she could also see the potential. But she had the gift of this golden key, which was not a one size fits all, but it sort of was. It was this unconditional compassion and love for each individual. And she would get to you in the way that would most unlock the door for you. Whether you stepped through it or not, it was now open. And she would just leave you at the threshold of that. It's like you can either step in here or you can stay where you are. But she wouldn't take you kicking and screaming. She would let you do it for yourself. And if you didn't, I can't tell you how many people didn't appreciate it. And not many, but there were a few who were just used to, excellent athletes doing it their way, and were always told how great they were. And they couldn't handle being able to try to work as a team. She was a team sport, but then individual sports too, like cross country. And she had the gift of helping us to learn, and this is like a societal thing, as an individual, anything you're playing, you're always working with self to perfect and refine, let's say, or make progress to become better at self. And then when we come back together as a team, it's amazing. Like a symphony orchestra, every one of those people who are instrumentalists who play in a symphony, they practice every single day. Then when they come together as an orchestra, it's all at the same level, and you can take it wherever you want to. So it's really an important gift she taught us all. I remember one of the things I least liked, because I had to reframe it as a player for softball. Before we started to go down onto the field, the first thing we did was we would run a half mile, like as fast as we could. So all day long, all I thought about was, oh God, I got to run a half mile a day. How much do I want to eat lunch? I'm going to be starving by the end. But I did not like it. I didn't like it at all. As I was like always in the middle of the pack. I was a sprinter more than a distance person. But I just didn't like it because for all the reasons that a high school girl doesn't want to, you just don't want to. I just didn't want to. I just wanted to play the game. But then years later, as a coach, she said to me one day, did you ever get the reason why we do this? I want them to understand why we're doing this. You're not competing against each other. You're showing yourself. It's a self-discipline so that you can improve your own personal best. Some people will always finish in the front. Sometimes there are people who will push you to become better. It's like maybe this time you came in first, this next time the second person. So you two are always there pushing each other. She said, but it's important to know how to push yourself when you need to, and important when you know how to not push yourself. She goes, so it's a self-discipline as much as it's a group discipline. Like, be thankful for the people that make you better, and then be thankful for the times you can make yourself better. It's like, whoa, everything was always deep. It was always deep, and it was always, we'd study softball. She started the basketball program, then gave that to another coach and started the volleyball program, then gave that to another coach, then started the softball program, the cross country program. And she just kept doing that. She just kept doing that. And now that there's a rich tradition of, we went to state championships every single time because we knew how to get the best out of ourselves and to support each other as a team. Come on. Those are lessons for life. Yeah. 3 cheers for Jean Kondo. Yeah. Lack of fault finding. When she would offer what I would call constructive criticism, sometimes it was hard to take. I know for me personally, one of the things that would always upset me is if I made one mistake, I would think, that's it. She'd say, it's going to happen. You're going to make a mistake. But if you're going to take yourself out of the game, I should just take you out first. Because now it's harming everything else. So stop getting down on yourself. You're going to make mistakes. But I didn't want to. Who in here loves making mistakes? Right. But I had to get that. I didn't always have to be perfect. One mistake doesn't mean you're not good. I see, professionals boot the ball all the time. Like, things happen. It's going to happen. But I had to let that go. And I realized that perfectionism is earthly. There's no such thing as perfect. If you become perfect and repetitive, you're not growing. I'm not growing. You're not exploring what's possible in this moment with a song. Yeah, boring. Who likes cookie cutter? Unless you're making cookies. And there's a deliciousness about cookie cutters when you're making cookies. You want them to taste the same. Modesty. Over the years, she was put up to be inducted into every single Hall of Fame you can imagine in tri-state area of Pennsylvania. Declined every single time. So one of the first things that happened was all these guys who've been trying to get her into these Hall of Fames, or is it Halls of Fame? Halls of Fame? They started the paperwork already. So in the fall, she's going to be inducted into probably 5 or 6 that I can think of. And she would have hated that, which is why we love it so much. Because it's like, she deserves it, of all the people that deserve to be in there. That's not the reason she did it. So think about what motivates you, what motivates me. Do we do it for the accolades? Very rarely do we do things just because I want to win an award. Like, who does that? Unless you're in an Olympic competition, the idea is still the personal best, and you want to go for the gold because that's what pushes you, maybe. But that's not the only thing that pushes you, because how many would quit the first time they didn't get it? So think about what our motivations are. Gentleness. When I say she was tough until she wasn't. There was a gentleness in that toughness. It wasn't to put you down. It was to show you how good you can be, to help you crack that thing open for yourself. So in that toughness was a certain gentleness. Radiance of character. She was larger than life. One of these big, magnanimous kind of people that you just wanted to be around. She would always make you feel like you were the most important person in the room. She wouldn't just say, "Hey, Lisa." She would say, "Lisa!" Like, "Hey, how's it going? Like, tell me everything, what's going on with you?" And so all throughout my life, when I was doing something that was important to me, or like the first time I recorded in a studio, I went right down to her house. I didn't even call. I just knocked on the door because I saw her car was there. And the door is always open, right? Hey, we sat down and played it on a cassette on her giant speakers and just sat there, and she loved it. But I just wanted to think of the person you just want to bring everything good to. It was important what she thought of me. Do you have people like that? I'm getting all choked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a collective. All my cells are so happy in sharing this individual, because at a time when things were so questionable for me, what am I doing? Who am I? I don't fit into these things that I'm seeing around me. It was okay, and it was celebrated, And I was invited into this inner circle of coaching where I got to see on the other side how she watched children, how she looked at how we interacted with each other. Things she was thinking about I never thought about. I'd be standing beside her. It would be time to collect all the balls and the bats. And she'd say, watch so-and-so, watch what she does. What do you mean? As everyone's hurriedly like picking up balls and bats, this one person would just walk around. She was always in motion, but she never picked up one thing and put anything away. She was up here, then she was there. She was moving around like everybody else, but she never put anything away. And he goes, what do you think we should do about that? I said, I don't know. It's just one day. She goes, is it one day? Watch her all week. On Monday, I want you to watch her. This was Friday. And she said, and on Friday, I want you to talk to her about it. I was like, oh, what? You know what I mean? Now, the thing about it was, I was coaching people that I had played with. So I had the relationship of being teammate, silly, making people laugh, snap out of bad moods, and all that kind of stuff. Now, all of a sudden, I'm the authority, which was quite a transition for me to make, but she saw that I could do it, so I did it. So yeah, watching that person all week long. Darn if she didn't do it every single day. And I was like, what is that about? She goes, what do you think it's about? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what do you think it's about? It's just somebody who
Appearances.
just doesn't really want to do it, but they'll go through the motions.
Right.
Somebody's going through the motions. And then, so my first question to her was, is there anywhere else in your life where you feel like you're just going through the motions, where you don't matter, where what you're doing doesn't matter? Whether you do it or not, it'll get done. And you prove yourself right every single time. I said, that's what I'm going to ask her. She's like, that's even more than what I was thinking. And that was the thing. This person really believed she did not matter. Whether she helped or whether she didn't, it was going to get done. So every day she proved to herself, I don't have to push myself because it doesn't matter.
Wow.
Bam, she became one of the stars of the team.
Wow.
Not overnight. It took a little while to snap that habit, but I just start by picking up one ball tomorrow. And if you feel like picking up a second one, go for it. But know that you matter and it makes a difference whether you're helping or not. Because without your thing, so your soul's calling, that was long time ago. That was a long time ago when I was 18 years old talking to this person. He was 14. But I think about SoulCall, and how each of us might feel like I'm just going through the motions. It doesn't matter if I do it or not. It does matter. Your energy matters. They don't have sayings like the straw that broke the camel's back because one straw doesn't matter. Every little thing, not to get political, but your voice matters. Your vote matters. Never doubt that a small group of people can change. Thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So it's all of us together being supercharged with our soul's calling. So for this person, it was the position she was playing. She became so much better. And energetically, there was a synergy that shifted on the whole team. It was just one tiny thing that I would have never noticed in a million years. I wouldn't have noticed that. Then I started to become more curious, which is our word for the month, about who's doing what, how they're doing it, why they're doing it that way. And so there was a psychological component, obviously, to coaching, but a way of helping people to unlock it for themselves and to pay attention to themselves. Forgiveness. That story kind of explains all of that too. It's just like, I forgive you for what you were just doing, but you didn't really do anything wrong. You were just doing what you thought no one cared about. Cleanness, non-hatred, lack of conceit. One of the other things I remember clearly is like we'd be sitting, maybe we used to ride bikes together. After coaching, we would get on our bicycles and do maybe 20 miles just to get our miles in, and then go eat dinner. And I cherish those times that we had that kind of time to do those things. But I remember some of us were sitting around and I said, do you remember the time? And it was something that was not a really favorable thing. It was something that would have shown, it was funny at the time, but then you got to let it go. It might have thrown shade on somebody. But I said, do you remember when such and so? And she's like, no, I don't remember that. I'm like, you don't remember that? And I just tried to, because I remember things like an elephant. And she just looked at me and she said, I just told you I don't remember that. I was like, oh, okay. She goes, yeah, you did. It's not necessary to remember everything. I was just like, oh, pass the salt. It's not necessary to remember everything. Another lesson in life. Not necessary to remember everything. I can't remember how many times I remembered to think to myself, it's not necessary to remember everything. When you see people who, like Yogananda would say something, unconditional positive regard. Unconditional love means continuously loving people in spite of the fact that they hurt me, hurt you. You don't have to resonate or be close to them, but you can love them from a distance. Just send that energy that way. When you think of them, send love, nothing else, because it comes back, it's like boomerang, you know. So I would think of something, and I remember a time I was walking through downtown Pittsburgh, and there was a person who did a really horrible thing. But I was so happy to see this person because I'd forgotten it completely. And when I ran over and I was like, hey, they looked at me like, why are you even talking to me after what I did? I didn't remember it. I'm telling you, I didn't remember it until this person said, I'm so sorry. I had complete love amnesia. Like it erased the whole thing. And then the whole thing just dissipated for both of us. She didn't need to carry it around anymore. And I already wasn't. And it wasn't a thought process. It's a practice of living from the soul. So every day, get into the center of your being. And just the way it's not a thought process, I'm going to forgive this person today. It doesn't work like that. It's a transformation of energetic that doesn't hold the memory of something heavier than love. You see what I mean? The vibration of love is so much higher than the density of any thought. That's how we heal with light, removing tumors and things that are dense from bodies. We send something of a higher vibration, polarizing a kidney stone with a laser. I use that all the time, but we can do it with a laser beam of our consciousness. Get rid of things that no longer serve you, that are those weights. You know, if you want to take the ship out to shore, you pull in the anchor first and go. Yeah, and then go, and then just let it go. So the door was always open. Her door was always open. Keep the door of your heart always open. That's what I would say. Anything that was going on in my life, I knew that all through high school, I could just go sit in there and ask her. I don't know what to do. One of my favorite stories, you might have heard me tell this story, but this was in conjunction with Jean Kondo. I was singing I'd already been kind of recognized as having a really beautiful voice. So I just assumed when I got into high school that was going to carry through all through high school, and that you know, we had electives, and I could join the choir. That could be an elective. I could go to school and be in a singing class. I'm in, you know. But the very first day of class, of course, this teacher took me aside, and she said, I know a lot of people think you're a really good singer, but I don't.
What?
And you will never be good enough to sing a solo in my choir. I just want you to know that. You can audition, you can do whatever you want, but you're just not ever going to get a solo. And so I was, in the word for the month, curious about that, because no one had ever said anything like that to me in my whole life. And so I thought, as any good, I'm going to prove her wrong to my detriment. So choir opportunities came up for solos and duets, and I was listening as other people were auditioning who weren't as good as me, but they all got the solos. And so not knowing how to handle that adversity, I didn't want to quit. I wanted to be right. I wanted to prove her wrong. And I mostly wanted to sing a solo because I enjoyed it. And so I started to do little things, like first I just started chewing gum in class, which is like a no-no. I would just walk in chewing it, and then I wouldn't. And she'd be watching to see if she can call me on it, so then she can. And so after I became proficient at it, I waited outside with a pack of gum for everyone else. And I gave everyone a stick of gum, and I said, well, let's play a game today to see if we can get through the whole class. So I started disrupting the class.
Whoa.
Yeah, totally. Yes. Kathy saying you, totally out of character for me. And so this same teacher, this choir teacher, takes it upon herself to go to all of my other classes and ask all of my teachers, find this disruptive, doesn't listen, and they're like, who are you talking about? And they're like, no, are you talking about the same person? Are we talking about the same person? And I cared about those teachers, but not as much as Jean. my coach. So one day, this is the funniest part of the story. Do you guys remember Slim Whitman?
Yes.
We had Slim Whitman Day at school. So I'm sitting there, I've got like a felt cowboy hat on. I drew a mustache on, and I had overalls, and it was Slim Whitman Day. Everybody's walking around yodeling, you know. And so, in keeping with, girls' sports didn't get near the attention boys' sports. Their fields were pristine and gorgeous. One of the girls on our team's parents owned a construction company, so they dumped a load of dirt onto our field so that we could rake it around and not have to field balls out of cleat marks in the mud from the boys' football team. You see what I'm talking about? So took a study hall, a long story, but I'll keep it interesting, hopefully, to just go down during study hall and just rake the dirt around to make it smooth so that we can play on it in the afternoon. So it's Slim Whitman Day, and I come through the door to the locker room, and Coach Kondo and our assistant coach were sitting in there, and she's like, Lisa, come in here for a minute. I was like, all right. And she sent out my friend, Lynn, you go down to the field. We want to talk to her for a minute. They closed the door. And I was like, this can't be good. Like, I don't know what this is about. Either I've done something. And she's like, how are your classes going? I'm like, they're fine. Everything's good. She's like, all your classes, nothing's wrong anywhere. Nope. You get along with all your teachers. Yes. And she said, tell me about choir. And I was like, what? She goes, why is your choir teacher over here? She goes, what are you, like some kind of multiple personality? What's wrong with you? And I just, in my Slim Whitman hat, fake mustache, I just burst into tears. Because the most important person in my life, oh my God, has seen something in me that I've screwed up, like this is wrong. She's like, all right, it's upsetting enough. I understand that, but forget about that for a minute. She goes, tell me what's going on. So I explained the whole story. And she said, what are you still doing there? I said, I like to sing. She goes, I know you like to sing, but what are you still doing in a situation like that? I said, well, I want to get a solo. And she goes, I understand that. She goes, she's made it clear that that's not going to happen. Why do you think you're still doing, what do you think you're still doing there? She goes, better yet, I want you to leave and I want you to go home and think about, are you bringing anything positive from yourself into this situation? And then I want you to think about, are you getting anything positive for yourself from this situation? Come back tomorrow morning and tell me, and I'll go. So I'm down there raking that field. When I see her, I'm going to tell her, I was so mad, but I think I was more mad with myself, not so sure. And so I said, all right, so the next morning I am going to, okay. So we got a situation where it's going to rain. Cliffhanger to be continued next week. So I came in the next morning and I realized, no, I'm not getting anything positive out of it. It's frustrating. It's humiliating. It's aggravating. And I'm not bringing anything positive to it. I'm bringing negativity. I'm disrupting the class. All the things you wouldn't bring. And so she said, so if you're not getting anything positive out of it and you're not bringing anything positive to it, she said, what you need to understand is sometimes quitting doesn't make you a quitter. It makes you a winner, and it makes you someone who takes care of yourself. Sometimes to remove yourself from a negative situation is the most positive thing you can do. She goes, all right, go think about it. So I went immediately to that teacher and I just said, I'm coming to tell you that I quit, and I don't want to be part of this game that you're creating. I don't think you're fair. I don't think you're kind. And I don't think you were fair with me at all to say that to me right up front. And I was trying to prove something to you, but I know that that's impossible. So I quit. And she was like, oh, I'm like, no, I quit. And I left. And the next day, the stage band was looking for a singer. And I was, in the band. I played French horn in the band, and Mr. Peaky, the band director, came over to me and he's like, you're the only person that can do this. You've got it great. Boy, I've heard you. And so the next thing you know, instead of just singing solos for the 18 people that would show up for a choir concert back then, it was for the whole school, multiple classes. And So what about that? Think about your soul's qualities and what comes forth from you. And be curious about people who tell you you can't, and how long to stick around in a situation before you actually have to believe what somebody said. Like, no matter what you do, I'm not ever going to promote you. No matter what you do, I'm not going to be the one to. So it set me off on a course of some other way of finding my expression. But that just means the infinite sometimes says no. Not here, here. I want you to do it here. So it doesn't always have to look the way you think it's going to look. So, I went into that thinking it was just going to be all fun and games, and it was just the opposite. So lifetime sometimes throws you things that you go into it thinking this is just going to be a blast, but it leads you to a greater blast on the inside, the blast from the soul opening up, spilling forth through your heart, carrying it into life. So for all of you who have someone in your life who is an extraordinary example of living it every single day. I could go on and on, but it's time to wrap it up. Humble bow to Jean Kondo, and to all of you whose lives were touched by this person and any person. Take a moment, just know that when they're not in physical form, they're in a realm where they're everywhere now, so they can hear it all. And just thank from the center of your heart those other humans who helped you to become the human that you are. And with deep gratitude, I thank you for being the humans you are and listening to your soul's calling.